Hey, welcome back to Inside the Huddle, finishing up this great Monday here in Ann Arbor. Zach, we had a tweeter that sent this to me. The 2016 class still needs a win or two versus Ohio State and another versus Michigan State for their legacy to actually matter after they leave U of M. I know the NFL is the end goal, but one can't have a legacy if you don't win something that matters. Nobody's arguing that otherwise.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
But all we're talking about is the fact that these are impressive players that are generating attention and that they will have a chance to play in the NFL. I don't think we said something like the 2016 team is the greatest team that Michigan football has ever had.
Yeah. No, in regarding the class, no. None of those players came to Michigan to go 10-3 each year. No, they came for a trophy. They came for some hardware. Again, if they're going to be picked in the first round, they should go. Because that will put them in position to try to win hardware of their own at the NFL level. But otherwise, I think that people do take it seriously. Yeah. I mean, Chris Partridge talked about, because he was kind of the mastermind behind putting that class together. It is a pretty cohesive group. They all have that same goal, and that's kind of where I'm at, where it's like they're growing up. They know what their potential is, but they know where they stand, but they also know how great they can be.
Well, without a doubt. I also think that history is a little more favorable to players after they leave. Like, take Mike Hart and Chad Henne, 0-4 each against Ohio State. But I don't think when people look back on Mike Hart's career...
Yeah, they're still getting standing O's.
Yeah, they're not come back going like, wow, Mike Hart, sure, rushed for the most yards in history program, but he's 0-4 against Ohio. Like, that kind of stuff's kind of just... Now, if they were 2-2, or he beat them and went to a national championship... Yeah, I mean, you get a little bit more remembered, but I don't think people sit back and knock Chad Henne anymore because he went 0-4 against Ohio State.
But how many Big Ten titles did those two combine to win?
They won in 2004 together. That's, I think, the only one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 2004 was the only one because that was their freshman year.
Okay.
2005, they went 7-5. 2006, they lost to Ohio State. That ended up being the deciding game of the championship. Yeah. 2007.
Yep.
So
okay. So maybe there's something there.
Our next guest is actually a gigantic Michigan football fan, graduated from the Michigan Law School, the prestigious law school, in 2005. And he is Rick Hoeg of Hoeg Law Firm and a new sponsor to the show. You've done some podcasting with the MGO blog guys before, now joining us. Certainly, I've read some of your stuff. Huge Michigan sports fan. And, we were talking a little bit earlier, unlikely sports stories. We mentioned 2008, taking a program that was successful for 40 years and turning it into a basement dweller, as one of the most unlikely sports stories in Michigan football history. We mentioned Tom Brady going from 6th-round pick to the greatest of all time, Jim Abbott being born without a hand and becoming an All-American pitcher and a no-hitter. A couple more that are thrown at me is the Fab Five freshmen going to the championship game as true freshmen, which was pretty incredible. And then someone else said losing to Appalachian State is also one of the most unlikely sports stories. Didn't know there's anything like your lifetime, Rick. You're a little bit younger than me, right? You said you think we're 35.
No, I wish.
Oh,
we're almost the same age.
Okay, I thought you told me you're 35, but so like, what is the most unlikely sports story of your Michigan?
The one that I always like, and thanks for having me on, absolutely, and I'm looking forward to sponsoring the show, is Jordan Kovacs. I've always really liked the story of the unexpected walk-on or Rudy type stories, which
No, there's no Rudy. Just the Kovacs story. We don't need to mention Rudy.
But
Rudy played one play. Jordan Kovacs was a 2.5, 3-year starter.
As far as I know, Kovacs and he actually had some stat lines in the NFL for a little while. I don't know whether he's still there or not, but I think he had a season where he made some tackles and he did some things. But I love those stories of people that are told no or told that they can't make it or aren't offered scholarships and say no. I'm just going to keep on keeping on and ultimately make the team, and then not just make the team with respect to Kovacs, but become a captain, make it to the NFL, get stats in the league, is really inspiring to me, and I think it's inspiring in walks of life that aren't just sports.
Well, I'll tell you what. Here's an impressive one that you can use at your next party that you have.
I'm ready.
What you want to impress your friends. Jordan Kovacs has more tackles for loss than any other defensive back in the history of Michigan football.
Is that right?
He has 26 tackles for loss.
Well, see, I think that's fantastic, and that's an unexpected story. I mean, given his background, it's maybe not as unexpected as you might think from the fact that he was a walk-on, but it's still one of those stories where you can look at it and say that's amazing, and we watch sports for a lot of reasons, but triumph of the human spirit is one of those, and that's really very cool. Certainly from a young kid to come on and make it big.
All right, so now, since you brought up Jordan Kovacs, do you identify with the walk-on, the plucky kid that comes out of nowhere to become the great lawyer that everybody wants to work with? I mean, is that the Rick Hoeg life story here?
No, I mean, I don't know about, certainly from the sports perspective, I would have to identify with the plucky walk-on because I never really had the skill set to identify with anybody else. From a law perspective, I really like working with entrepreneurs, people with a dream, people with an idea. I work with a lot of tech folks from the University of Michigan. I work with a lot of tech folks from universities all over the state. And I work with a lot of people that want to start something, have a great idea, have a product, have a service, have something they want to put together. And, yeah, I think that's inspiring. I think that's energizing to work with folks that have a dream, have an idea, and want to make it a reality when it's just something on a cocktail napkin before then.
Well, we sat down last week, or actually about a week and a half ago, had lunch together, and Rick and I both just kind of have the same energy, I think, which was a good fit for the two of us. And he said, hey, you're not on the clock right now. And I'm like, oh, thank God, because I probably can't afford you. And this is what I really appreciate about you, Rick, is that you worked at a big firm for a long time.
I did, absolutely.
And now you've ventured off on your own, and you've got this law firm the last couple of years. But you have that big firm experience, and this is your tagline, big firm experience, with a small firm approach. Yep. And really the best part of that small firm approach is you're not asking for $1,000 per hour. I am not asking for $1,000 per hour. Now, I mean, lawyers are always going to be a cost center for your growing business or whatever else that you're doing. And so it's not something that should be walked into lightly. But yeah, I worked at some of the largest law firms in Michigan and in Ann Arbor for more than a decade. I graduated from the law school in 2005. And I continue to have very strong relationships with those firms. But a couple years back, I left to start my own firm, Hoeg Law, to really focus on delivering the same level of service at less overhead with hopefully more attention. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you can get great legal advice at $1,000 an hour, but I think you can get great legal advice in different places, hopefully from me, for a little less. Yeah, it's certainly. I mean, I was trying to think of like a sports comparison to it, like someone that's like a smaller organization that wins it big. Maybe it's the Vegas Golden Knights right now. So it's Leicester City, 5,000 to 1. We're just gonna take them out at that odds. But yeah, the Golden Knights are amazing. Yeah, if Hoeg Law is an expansion team, I'd be very happy to make the Western Conference Finals. So, yeah. Absolutely. Well, hey, listen, we also do something on Mondays called The GOAT and the GOAT. I'll let Zach get it started here so you can get a little feel for it. But, sure. It's the greatest from the weekend. The person that, GOAT, kind of like Tommy Brady, that did something that we want to honor, and then someone that, doesn't deserve it. Someone that really just kind of, I don't know, tick people off or is licking players on the ice, doing something stupid. So that's the GOAT and the GOAT. And Zach, you want to start us off here? Yeah, I can do that. Mine are both like half GOATs. Or I guess, all right, I'll start with the obvious one. Michigan softball winning the Big Ten title, 10th in 11 years, 20th in 27 years. And they had a stat on their broadcast yesterday. Michigan softball has 20 Big Ten titles. No other team has more than 7. Wow. It's not like softball's this obscure sport that like 7 teams, I shouldn't say obscure. It's not one of those sports such as your field hockeys or some of these other sports where there are only like 7, or like lacrosse, there's only 7 Big Ten teams. All 14 teams are represented in softball. Mm-hmm. And it's a sport that partly thanks to Title IX, partly thanks to pretty impressive overall fan interest, teams are going in on. It's not like a low priority for very many schools, and Michigan softball just continues to run laps. And we talked about it before, and it's one of our earlier segments because we had this as one of our unlikely stories in the past, 20, 30 years for Michigan. It's that they just became this
school that teams or players would willingly pay more to come play for Carroll Hutchins, and they would willingly pay more tuition-wise to come and play with Michigan's resources and get a Michigan degree. And that's a hard sell for a sport that's so dominated. I mean, we can talk about the west of the Mississippi streak. Last year, 14 SEC teams made the NCAA tournament. Literally every single team in the conference did. And so that's, to be able to just continue to run circles around the rest of the Big Ten. Minnesota, they had a couple good seasons. They were a little bit down this year. They lost the conference by a couple games, and you saw Indiana and Ohio State regularly good. And by the way, look at the rest of the Big Ten and see how many of those players or how many of those coaches used to be former Carroll Hutchins players, if you want to judge her by her coaching tree. So they get my goat of the week. My bad goat it's kind of a weak bad goat. There was no one that really stood out, but I'm going to say Big Ten baseball and softball, because with all this money that they have, and honestly, yes, playing on the road is a tough thing. It's tough to do. It's tough to be on the road each and every week. But it's just perplexing to me that so much of the conference for both sports continues to be so bad with all the money, the resources. I mean, it's easier to be, you grew up playing baseball in Michigan. I grew up playing, it's not that hard to find places to get better, warehouses or different indoor facilities to keep practicing. But man, they are really struggling. It's really hurting Michigan softball. It's really hurting them. I have the RPI list behind me. I'll have to check once I'm done with my piece here. But I mean, they went 18-2 in the Big Ten, and they're not in the top 25 in the RPI.
Wow, unbelievable.
They're 43 and 10. I guess they went 18-3 in the Big Ten. They lost yesterday. That's surreal. In baseball, by the way, an update on them. They lead the Big Ten as well. They're up by they're tied with Minnesota. So Michigan, Minnesota do it right. No one else is doing it right. Huh. But Michigan, they went on that 20-game win streak, and they're looks like they're clipping toward a 35-36 win season. They're 13-3 in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And they don't have a top 40 RPI.
Yeah.
If the season ended today and they didn't win the Big Ten tournament, they would not be going to the NCAA tournament. So I get that there's some geographical disadvantages, but there are big league players that come from these states, and it's not
absolutely.
It should not be this
There's
hard.
also Major League Baseball teams here, so it's not like the sport just doesn't exist in the Midwest.
Right, and there are some big disadvantages, but to the rest of the Big Ten, I mean, look at what Michigan's doing.
Yeah,
this is the second year in a row that both teams are arguably one of the best one or two teams or maybe it's the third year in a row that's happened. But regardless, should not be this hard, especially with all the money they get now.
All right, so you're goat and goat softball, and then the rest of the Big Ten. You know how it works now. Do you have anyone to mind, Rick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Since I already have mentioned Rudy on this show, I think I have to double down and say my favorite of the weekend was LeBron at the end of that Raptors Game 3. LeBron's torn my heart out a lot with respect to Pistons. I still remember being at my wedding rehearsal dinner the night when LeBron James scored, I don't even remember how many it was, 24 straight points in the fourth quarter in overtime.
Yeah.
To end really the Pistons' streak of being good. But what he's done by putting what is a substandard team on his back and just no doubt whatsoever what was going to happen in the last 5 seconds of that game is just remarkable. And you got to tip your cap to that kind of performance because, in my opinion, he doesn't have the team around him, and he just says, no, we're not going to lose to the Raptors. And that's really impressive. On the other side of the coin, for the real GOAT of the weekend for me, it has to be the Detroit Tigers. I mean, they've played the Royals I don't even know how many times now.
I think 6.
And they're not a good team.
Or 7, yeah.
And so when you look at their record, you say the Tigers are, they're performing not well, but you maybe think they're not performing that terribly. And then you look at how many games they've already spent against the Royals. It's only going to get a lot worse as the summer goes on. So watching sports this weekend, a lot of success for our neighbors to the south, no success for our baseball team. Yeah, it's a little rough to be a Southeast Michigan sports fan right now, but certainly it's always fun to see real greatness perform, and I think LeBron is just crazy right now.
Glad we have another LeBron truther in the studio, because Michael.
Hold on. Hold that thought.
Okay.
Hold that thought.
All right.
So my GOAT for the weekend is, hey, let's give a little props to the horse, to Justify.
There you
go. For winning the Kentucky Derby. Was the favorite going into the Derby. And if you bet on the favorite, you won quite a bit. I actually did bet on the favorite this weekend, too, and thank you, Justify.
It's only legal betting, right?
Yeah, all legal.
Of course.
All legal
of course.
betting. All legal betting. And so he won by a long, it wasn't even close. Like the last, a quarter of a mile or something like that, he pulled away.
Sure.
Wasn't even very close, wasn't very much drama, but had so much fun. I'm now curious to see. We always talk about it. We immediately jump to the Triple Crown talk. Will we win it? What was Pharaoh? What's
American Pharaoh?
American Pharaoh that won it in 2015. We haven't had one since then. Let's see if he can do it. But I'm going to enjoy a little of the horse racing for the next couple of weeks.
Sure.
And he's never lost,
fun.
right?
No.
Justify.
Yeah. And then my bad goat for the week is actually the LeBron James haters. Because I'm not a LeBron James hater. I've never been a big fan because he killed my team.
He did.
And I'm gonna have to pull up some clips because you were pretty down on him.
I don't think I've never thought he's a bad player. I've never been willing to say he's better than Jordan. But I don't think we need to make the comparison to Jordan. At the end of the day, he's one of the 5 best players in the history of the game.
Absolutely.
And he's hit 3 buzzer beaters in the playoffs so far to win it. He's averaging, I think it's like 36 points per game in the playoffs. He's incredible. So why do we have to come on sports radio? Why do we have to jump on Twitter and, he's never done this, or, we'll talk about the decision? He is, and by all accounts, too, he's a pretty decent guy.
Fantastic guy.
So, you look at what he does in the community, you look at how he handles himself. I'm going to say that LeBron James, the people that still are hating on LeBron James for no good reason, they make my bad goat of the weekend.
By the way, real quick, 2 stats on baseball, softball. Softball is 8th nationally in wins. They are 30th in the RPI.
Okay.
The only teams with as many or more wins that are lower in the RPI are Liberty and UNC Greensboro. So that's where the Big Ten softball is at right now.
And what do you got for baseball?
And baseball, Big Ten is the 6th best conference. And, you have a team at the top of the conference, 13-3 in the conference, on the outside looking in for the NCAA tournament right now.
Hey, listen, we're going to be joined on a regular basis by Rick Hoeg of Hoeg Law Firm, huge Michigan sports fan. He'll be happy. You don't even have to call him about law. You just want to talk sports with him. And I bet Rick would love to sit down and talk to you. But if you have a legal question, you're a small business owner, you're a startup, a tech firm, all these different things, you can give them a call at 734-263-1001 or go to hoeglaw.com. That's HOEGLAW.com, hoeglaw.com. Rick, thanks very much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, when we come back tomorrow, we'll have Nick Bumgardner join us for our Michigan Media Roundtable. We'll have our True, False, and quite a bit more. It's Inside the Huddle on Sports Talk 1050, WTKA The Ticket.